Hi Field School friends, I'm here today to read to you the story Balloons Over Broadway, the true story of the puppeteer of the Macy's Day Parade by Melissa Sweet, a Caldecott Honor winner. The true story of Tony Sarg, puppeteer. After the story I will be sharing with you a challenge, so please stay tuned all the way till the end. So this book has some amazing illustrations and artwork in it. Both the author and illustrator is the same person. So you can see the Tony Sarg marionette book. And if you are unfamiliar with what a marionette is, you can see on this page that marionettes are puppets with strings. Balloons Over Broadway, the true story of the puppeteer of the Macy's Parade, written and illustrated by Melissa Sweet. Here you can see a picture of Anthony, Tony, Frederick Sarg. Sarg rhymes with R. Tony Sarg was alive from 1880 to 1942. Every little movement has a meaning of its own. Tony Sarg. From the time he was a little boy, Tony Sarg loved to figure out how to make things move. He once said he became a marionette man when he was only 6 years old. His father had asked him to feed their chickens at 6:30 in the morning, every day. Tony had an idea. What if he could feed the chickens without leaving his bed? He rigged up some pulleys and ran rope from the chicken coop door to his bedroom window. That night, he spread the chicken feed outside the chicken coop door. Look at this illustration. He spread feed the night before. Pull rope. Door opens, chickens come out. The next morning, Tony pulled on the rope, and the door to the chicken coop opened. The chickens ate their breakfast. Tony stayed snug in his bed, and his dad, so impressed, never made Tony do another chore. If I was his parent, I'd probably have him solve some of my other problems, like how to fold laundry. When Tony grew up, he moved to London, where he discovered that no one was making marionettes for kids anymore. So out of wood, cloth, and strings, Tony began to make puppets. He figured out ways to make his marionettes' movements so lifelike that they performed as if they were real actors. Word soon spread about Tony's amazing marionettes. The Tony Sarg marionettes. When Tony moved to New York City, the Tony Sarg marionettes began performing on Broadway. In the heart of New York City in Herald Square was the biggest store on earth, R.H. Macy's department store. Macy had heard about Tony's puppets and asked him to design a puppet parade for the store's holiday windows. So Tony made new puppets based on storybook characters, then attached them to the gears and pulleys to make them move. In Macy's Wondertown windows, Tony's mechanical marionettes danced across the stage as if by magic. All day long they performed to shoppers, jostling for a better look. But Macy had an even bigger job in store for Tony. Many of the people working at Macy's were immigrants, and as the holidays approached, they missed their own holiday traditions of music and dancing in the streets. Macy's agreed to put on a parade for their employees, and they hired Tony to help. Tony, too, was an immigrant, and so he loved the idea of creating a parade based on street carnivals from all over the world. He made costumes and built horse-drawn floats, and Macy's even arranged to bring in bears, elephants, and camels from the Central Park Zoo. The animals joined hundreds of Macy's employees on Thanksgiving Day, 1924. Winding their way from Harlem to Herald Square, it was a dazzling parade. In fact, Macy's first parade was such a success that they decided to have one every year on Thanksgiving Day to celebrate America's own holiday. Each year the parade grew, but when Macy's brought in lions and tigers, in addition to bears, elephants, and camels, the animals roared and growled and frightened the children. Macy's asked Tony to replace the animals. "Tony, can you think of something spectacular?" "Okay." Tony helped to replace the animals with some kind of puppets, but his marionettes were less than 3 feet tall. He would have to make much larger puppets in order for them to be seen in the parade. And how could he make them strong enough to hold up in bad weather, yet light enough to move up and down the streets? Tony knew of a company in Ohio that made blimps out of rubber, the perfect material for any weather. When he called the company and showed them his sketches, they agreed to make what Tony wanted. Still, how would Tony make his big puppets move? Then, Tony had an idea from an Indonesian rod puppet in his toy collection. On Thanksgiving Day, Tony's creatures, some as high as 16 feet, spilled into the streets, and the crowds cheered wildly. Part puppet, part balloon, the air-filled rubber bags wobbled down the avenues, propped up by wooden sticks. But now the sidewalks were so packed with people that only those in the first few rows could really see the parade. Tony realized his puppets would have to be even bigger and higher off the ground, and though the sticks helped to steer the puppets, they were stiff and heavy. Tony wanted his balloons to articulate, to move and gesture more like puppets. But how? With a marionette, the controls are above and the puppet hangs down. But what if the controls were below and the puppet could rise up? During the next year, Tony set his new idea into motion. This time, he asked the company in Ohio to make balloons out of rubberized silk, as strong as rubber, but lighter than rubber alone. Most important, Tony ordered the balloons to be filled not just with air, but with helium too. Since helium is lighter than air, it would make the balloons rise. Once the puppets were completed, they were deflated and shipped back to Tony in New York. Tony did not know if everything would go as planned. What if the balloons are filled with too much helium? What if one hits a sharp object? Will they fit under the L, the elevated train track? It was still dark on Thanksgiving morning when Tony filled the balloons with helium, tethering them down with sandbags. By 1 p.m., the sidewalks were packed with people ready for the parade. Then, one by one, Tony cut the lines to the sandbags. Let's have a parade. And the magnificent upside-down marionettes took flight. Nodding and waving to the crowds below, they sailed past Central Park. They sailed down Broadway. High above the crowds, they flounced in the afternoon wind, pulling the rope handlers this way and that. Yet, with every heave-ho, the balloons gestured and articulated like wild puppets, and the crowd screamed for more. And the balloons were eased under the L. They ended in front of Macy's at Tony's Wondertown windows. It was a parade New Yorkers would never forget. And from that day on, every Thanksgiving morning, crowds have lined the sidewalks of New York City to see what new balloons would rise to the skies for Macy's famous parade. Tony Sarg, the puppeteer who loved to figure out how to make things move, had set the stage with a little rigging for a puppet to be anything anyone could imagine it to be. So here we can see a picture of Tony Sarg and one of his magical elephant balloons. And here's one of the original advertisements from the New York Times about Here Comes the Parade. Now, for field school students over Thanksgiving break 2018, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to use a balloon for your base and add other materials as you design and build a balloon float based on a book character that could be used in a parade. Once you design this book character balloon float that could be seen in Macy's parade, you will email a picture to Mrs. Schaub. After break, I will make sure that all of the pictures are up in the hallway, and we'll be voting on them. And each participant will receive a special prize from Mrs. Schaub. If you would like more information, there will be some linked on the paper that is being sent home, as well as on my blog. Also, you can visit the site Wonderopolis. Wonderopolis has a wonder of the day, and this Do You Love a Parade will give you some more exciting facts about parades and what goes into some parade floats. So I can't wait to see everybody's imagination take flight, and can't wait to see your pictures. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I am thankful to work with the field school community. Thank you.